As the crisis in Russia continues, China is there to step in and help. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into this first. We are talking about China turning away from the dollar. This is out of the Financial Times. One of the points dealt with the deployment of China's $4 trillion in foreign currency reserves, chunks of which have been recycled into treasuries for more than a decade, helping to keep U.S. rates low and underpin economic growth in the West. We're talking here about what the actual Chinese officials are saying, and they have this 10-point plan for financial reform. They have too much money invested in the U.S. in their debt, and this has been supporting the economy of the U.S. and, as they said, keeping the interest rates low. And this has been going on for years and years. Of course, it's going to take a long time to wean them off of this, but it looks like it's happening, and they're making it an official policy. So if we go on, they said, better use should be made of China's foreign exchange reserves to support the domestic economy and the development of an overseas market for Chinese high-end equipment and goods. I wrote about it in my book, talking about how they need to support the domestic economy, as they say. They have more people moving from the rural areas into the big cities, which obviously puts more of a burden on those various cities. This is something that is going to take a long time to really take effect, but it is happening. We see the trends, and this is, there's going to be pitfalls along the way, but it is definitely happening. So we see the officials in the government coming out and publicly stating that they need to wean off of the U.S. debt. If I just scroll down for a moment here, just to show you one last thing, a senior Chinese official who declined to be identified, he said this: "This is a big change and it cannot happen too quickly, but we want to use our reserves more constructively by investing in development projects around the world rather than just reflexively buying U.S. treasuries." And we see how much of the real estate that they're buying all around the world, from Cyprus all the way into the U.S. In many cases around the U.S., we see lots and lots of real estate, the projects, but also just individual homes being bought up by Chinese investors. So we see how they're trying to diversify out of their own nation, and also they're trying to diversify out of U.S. debt, knowing where it's headed. Now, of course, they're still buying in the U.S., but they believe that they need to diversify out of this debt, and that is a very good idea on their part. Lots of good information in this article, but I wanted to move on to the key point of this video. Russia may seek China to help to deal with the crisis. Russia could fall back on its 150 billion yuan currency swap agreement with China if the ruble continues to plunge. Now, of course, this is all basically speculation at this point, but they have these deals that go on, Russia and China, and also Japan and China, and pretty much every country around the world with China has some sort of different swap agreement. They want to use the yuan or the renminbi. They want to use that as their currency of exchange, so they don't have to use the dollar. So let's go on with this right here. If the swap deal is activated for this purpose, it would mark the first time China is called upon to use its currency to bail out another currency in a crisis. This was signed back in October. They said this: Russia badly needs liquidity support, and the swap line could be an ideal tool. Now, that's what he's saying here, this chief economist, and this does make a lot of sense. Well, we'll have to see where it goes. And just to finish off here, they said the swap allows the central banks to directly buy yuan and ruble in the two currencies rather than via the US dollar. That is the most important factor. They do not want to deal with the US dollar, particularly now when the ruble is suffering such a bad exchange rate. They have to go in and convert their currency. So let's get into that right now. For those who don't know or who want a better explanation of this, this is the diagram from my book, and it is actually very telling right here, where we have China and Russia that want to do a deal in between each other. And you could see this. China wants oil from Russia. They have to exchange their currency for US dollars, and then give the US dollars to Russia, and then China receives their oil. So this is an exchange that has been happening now for some time, and we see this goes on all over the world because the US dollar is the exchange, the currency for the whole world essentially. So we have these reserve currencies that go with time. You see them around, and the US dollar is currently in that state. But it seems to be as the countries around the world are weaning off of that, it's losing its power. And China and Russia are really at the center of this right now. So let's move on right here and let's go into something that shows you that the problems that we're facing in the world and what we're seeing with China, with Russia, are not just focused on those economies. This goes for the entire world. Let's go to the US for a moment and see this out of the LA Times. America's middle class household wealth stagnation over the past 3 decades. The Great Recession destroyed a significant amount of middle income and lower income families' wealth, and the economic recovery has yet to be felt for them. This is exactly what I have said. Wealth stagnation over the past 3 decades. We've seen that. I've showed you the charts. And this right here, that they destroyed the middle class and the lower class, and they are essentially pushing them down further. They push the middle class into the lower class. The lower class then needs to go in and basically get on the welfare programs, get on the food stamps, and that's how this is working out. It is the elite class which is really getting all the benefits of all the money printing, of all the relaxed regulations just for them. They have the no taxation for certain companies and certain individuals. They're allowed to keep their money offshore, all their profits offshore, and you and I have to face the burden of debt. So let's get on with this right here where we talk about inflation, because that's really where the individual is hurt. $4.20 per pound, the price of ground beef climbs to another record. I'll continuously show these statistics because it goes to show you that while yes, gas prices may be lower right now, we're still looking at the most important thing, our food prices rising. And we will look into this further as we see electricity prices on the rise, we see food prices on the rise, and in general, everything is rising not because of any sort of difference in these products at all. It is simply the devaluation of the currency. If we go on to something else important, is the personal savings rate. When you want economic recovery, when you want stability, when you want a nation to be seen as a reserve currency around the world, you need that stability in the middle class, and we don't have that at all. If you look at the US stats right out of the St. Louis Fed, this is the personal savings rate, and you're seeing a decline, dramatic decline, going over the past few decades, and practically a straight line downward. This is at a rate that it essentially has never been at, as far as I'm aware. Nobody is saving any money. It's at the negatives if you look at many categories. But here we are looking at these stats. As again, I wanted to mention, if you want Russia and China to continue to trade in US dollars, you need a strong middle class, and this is definitely telling that there's anything but that present in the United States. And I just wanted to connect in with this. We're talking about Judicial Watch, and this is one excellent organization here. They obtained records revealing Obama's $1 million in transportation expenses to attend political fundraisers in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So if we get into this, what I wanted to mention, why I'm mentioning this, is that we have a essentially this oligarchy in a way where they are able to use the money of the people, siphon it in with socialism or whatever you want to call it. It's a totalitarian system, using all of our money and basically sucking the wealth out of the middle class, out of the lower class, and using it in order to support themselves. The elite class always gets all the money. They revealed that in October, fundraising trips by President Obama to Los Angeles and San Francisco cost the taxpayers over $1 million in flight expenses alone. We know that they are never going to get out of this mess. There will be no end of the recession because of this type of behavior when they use all of the funding, when the Congress does nothing but pass laws that are against the will of the people. They've destroyed the sovereignty of the nations, and you see how other countries countries which were seen as communist, which were seen as the enemy, are actually doing more for freedom and more for liberty than our own nations. It is pretty sad to look at this. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I'm trying to get back to all the comments. I'm trying to get back to all the emails. There's so many. Please keep them coming, and we will correspond through there. And of course, don't forget to become an insider. The Insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free, and that is available at themoneygps.com. Scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.